Hey guys, it's Jen. Welcome back. Today we're going to be doing a review and some comparisons of the new Colourpop Celestial Collection. So this is the one that came out exclusively at Ulta, and I was really surprised to see it because Colourpop had shut down their manufacturing due to the virus, and as it turns out, they had sent this to Ulta before all of that happened, so it was already scheduled to be released anyway. Unfortunately, because it's only available at Ulta, that means that only those of us in the US can get our hands on this right now, but hopefully once Colourpop opens back up, they'll have this one on their website as well. And I don't know about you guys, but I kind of started to miss Colourpop. I never thought I would say that because their new releases were just getting out of control. It was like every single week there was a new Colourpop collection, and I stopped buying them all just because it was way too much, and I just started focusing on ones that I really connected with and I really thought I would use. But this one I just thought was so beautiful. As soon as I saw the palettes and also the luxe lip glosses, I was so excited to see these because they had sent these to me in PR with the Making Mauves or Making Mauves collection, however you want to say it, and they were so amazing. These glosses feel so good on your lips. They have that really thick, cushiony feel. It almost feels like a liquid lip balm, and I was planning to pick up more shades of them when they ended up closing down their factory. So I was very excited that the lip product that was with this collection was the luxe glosses, and I ended up grabbing all four just because I wanted to expand my collection anyway. So why don't we jump in first with a quick review and swatches before we get into the comparisons. So in this collection, you're getting two 9-pan palettes, one that's more cool toned and one that's a little bit more warm. You also have two of their pressed powder blushes that coordinate with the palettes, and I think their pressed powder blushes are one of the most underrated products in their entire collection. They're fantastic. And then you also get 4 different luxe glosses, and I feel like 2 of the glosses kind of go with one of the collections and then 2 of them go with the other. So why don't we go ahead and start with the cooler toned side of the collection first. This palette is called All Things Equinox, and this one looks very similar to a lot of the palettes we've been seeing from Colourpop lately. They're really getting more on that cool tone trend, so I'm definitely going to be making some comparisons between this palette and those. But this palette is full of those taupey gray and brown shades as well as some purples. Formula-wise, I think this one feels amazing as well. You do have a mix of shimmer shades and matte shades. You also have one matte shade that has those little flecks of micro glitter in it, but it's not super heavy on the micro glitter. There are also no pressed glitters or super shock shadows in this palette. And then the blush is called Interstellar, and Colourpop is describing this one as a matte mid-tone warm pink. So I thought that was kind of interesting that they mixed more of a warm tone blush with the cooler toned palette, but I do feel like they complement each other really well. And then the second palette's called She's Got Solstice, and this one is a little bit more of a warm toned vibe going on. It does have a couple of cool shades. You have a cool kind of dusty matte pink and also a beautiful green shimmer as well, but I think majority of this palette is definitely more towards the warm tone side. This one also has a super shock shadow that is super metallic and foiled. It's a gold shade called Super Stardust, and it's really beautiful. Again, no pressed glitters in this palette at all, so that's definitely a good thing in my mind. And then the blush is called Meteorite, like with a question mark, and this one's described as a matte, soft, nude terracotta shade. I love this one. This is probably my favorite of the 2 blushes. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. And then for the 4 glosses, the first one is called Overnight, and this one is described as a pale peachy nude gloss. Next up we have Come Through, and this one is described as a mid-tone nudie peach gloss with gold flecks. And then the third one is called Staying Up, and this one's described as a cool-toned berry pink gloss. And last but not least, we have Tied Up, and this one's described as a mid-tone neutral pink with a silver sheen. So as I said, I love these glosses. You honestly can't go wrong with them. If you're a gloss person like I am, this is one of the nicest gloss formulas I've ever come across. It's sheer. It's not like a super heavily pigmented lip gloss, but it's not super sheer where they don't show up either. I think you get a really nice dose of color on your lips, but at the same time, they just feel so cushiony and so soft, and they have pretty good staying power for a lip gloss as well. I mean, they're not going to last you all day or through eating and drinking or anything like that, but I do feel like they have that kind of stickiness to them, and I don't mean sticky like they feel sticky on your lips. They actually, like, they feel really soft and really comfortable, but they just have like a grip, I guess is the better word. Like, they just feel like they grip to your lips a little bit. So definitely love these glosses. And also, like I mentioned too, the powder blushes from Colourpop are some of my absolute favorite blushes in my entire collection. I love these 2 shades that they came out with. I think both of these work really well on my skin tone. I think that the Meteorite one, the nude blush, is a little bit lighter than the other one, so I think if you have a deeper skin tone, you may have to just build this one up a little bit more, whereas the Interstellar one is just a slight bit darker. I just had to use a little bit of a lighter hand with this one to keep it from being too dark on my skin tone. So why don't we go ahead and get into the two looks. I didn't actually film the looks today, partly to save time and also because I don't know if it's just me, but every time I actually do a look on camera, it doesn't come out as well. I do so much better if I just do the look in my bathroom where I have a big mirror and really good lighting, and I just feel like nothing ever comes out the way I want it to when I film my looks. So that's something I'm just gonna have to practice over time, but I will definitely let you know all the shades that I used and all of that. So first let's start with the look that I did with the All Things Equinox palette, and I also used the Interstellar blush, kind of because they have the same packaging, so I'm assuming these are sort of supposed to go together. So the first shade I used was Lil Dipper in my crease, and this one's just a really nice matte mid-tone neutral brown. And then I did a halo eye on my lid, so I took the purple shimmer shade called Moonrise and I put that on the inner and outer corners of my eyes, and then I just popped the shade Infinity, which is a gorgeous gold shimmer, right in the center of my lid. And that's it. I just used those three colors and I think it came out really, really beautiful. And then here's a close-up look of the Interstellar blush on my cheeks, and even though they said this one was more of a warm tone pink, I think it still really coordinates nicely with the shadows on my lid. And on my lips, I'm wearing the shade Tied Up, which was that mid-tone neutral pink with a silver sheen. I love this gloss with this look. I think it goes together perfectly. But I also wanted to show you guys the other gloss, which is called Staying Up. And this one was the cool toned berry pink gloss. So this one's a little bit more of a deeper color. I'm not sure I love this shade necessarily with the colors that I'm wearing on my eyes today, but with another look, I think this color would be really beautiful. And then moving on to the look that I'm wearing today, I used the She's Got Solstice palette. And for this look, I started out with the shade Quasar in my crease, and this one's described as a coral terracotta matte. And then I deepened up my outer corner with the shade Chromosphere, which is a deep reddish brown shade, and that one's also a matte. And with this one, I also did a halo eye, so on the inner and outer corners of my lid, I used the shade Estrella, which is a pink coral shimmer with a gold flip. And then in the center, I used that gorgeous shade called Mars, which is an icy moss green with a silvery sheen. And then the blush on my cheeks is that gorgeous nude terracotta shade called Meteorite, and I love this color so much. I definitely feel like this is going to be one of those blushes that I continue to just use over and over again. And then the first shade that I'm wearing on my lips is Overnight, and that one was the Pale Peachy Nude Gloss. This one's a really pretty color. Normally I don't really wear nudes all that often because they wash me out, but this one actually I feel like it looked really pretty. And then the second color, which I'm actually wearing in the video today, is Come Through, and this one is the mid-tone nudie peach gloss with gold flecks. And this one I think is my favorite of the two, even though I like them both. It's a little bit more of a deeper nude, and I feel like it's just such a flattering color. Okay, so now let's do some palette comparisons, and we'll start out with She's Got Solstice. I got a ton of requests to swatch this next to the Lime Crime Venus XL2, so that's the one that I did first. And just looking at these two side by side in the palettes, you can definitely see how close they are in just the vibe of the palette with the pinks and the greens. And when I swatched them together on my arm, I didn't actually get any shades that were exact shade for shade dupes. But because they have such a similar vibe, I think you could definitely create a lot of the same looks with them. Not to mention that I think Colourpop's formula is a lot better than Lime Crime's. That one has some issues with it, especially with the shimmer shades. They're very, very hard to pick up in the pan. The mattes are okay, but I definitely think when it comes to the shimmer shades, the Colourpop one has it beat, not to mention it's a lot less expensive. The next one I wanted to compare it to is the Natasha Denona Mini Retro palette. This one again has that very similar vibe with the greens and the pinks. So when I swatched these two side by side, I actually did see quite a few similarities. That matte beigey pink color is almost spot on, and also the shimmery pinks are very close, as well as the shimmery greens. But the She's Got Solstice palette doesn't have the matte green that the Mini Retro has. It swapped it out for more of a matte brown. Next, I compared this one to the Disney Princess palette. At first, I wasn't thinking that these were going to be similar because the Princess palette doesn't have that green in it, but all the rest of the shades are so super close. I was shocked actually when I swatched these two side by side. Those peachy pink shades and the browns, everything is like just about spot on. Again, they're not completely exact shade for shade, but they have such a similar vibe. Really, I think you could create, again, so many of the same looks. It's just that you're missing that one green shade. Next, I also wanted to swatch it next to the You Can Be Magic Spell palette because this one is so similar. It's actually a dupe for the Lime Crime Venus XL. And looking at the two again side by side, it looks like there's going to be so many similar shades between them. And really there were. I think that the Colourpop one has a better formula than the You Can Be. It's a little bit richer and more pigmented. So I think if I were between the two, I would just go ahead and get the Colourpop because they're a very similar price point, but the Colourpop one is so much better quality-wise. Next, I got one or two requests on Instagram to swatch it next to the All I See Is Magic palette, and this one is one of my favorite palettes that Colourpop's ever done. It was from Holiday, I think 2017 or 2018. It's been a couple of years now, and I love that one. I always wished that they would have kept it permanent or brought it back because it's so beautiful. And looking at the two side by side, it really doesn't look like they would be that similar. But once I swatched them, again, I was very surprised by how many shades they share in common. The greens and the golds are super close. Also the pinks and those peachy pinks and the browns are like almost spot on. All I See Is Magic does have quite a few additional shades in it as well, but if you missed out on that one and you were always kind of regretting it, this new palette does have a very similar vibe. I also wanted to compare She's Got Solstice to the Sweet Talk palette because it has those kind of pinky coral shades in it, and looking at the two side by side, I definitely see those pink and coral shades popping out at me and they look really similar. The only thing is that the She's Got Solstice palette has the green, which Sweet Talk doesn't, but I mean when you swatch them out, I think there's definitely a very close vibe going on. But all the shades in Sweet Talk are warm toned where you have that mix in the Solstice palette. So even though you do have some of those warmer peachy colors and the warm brown, you also have a couple cool tones in there as well, which makes these two a little bit different. Alright, so then next let's do some comparisons with all things Equinox. So like I said in the beginning of the video, they seem to be doing this color story a lot lately, so I was assuming that I was going to find some really close matches in my collection. So first I compared it to the Making Mauves or Making Mauves palette. This one came out very recently, and this one was also a cool tone 9-pan palette. When you look at them side by side though, you can tell that the Making Mauves or Making Mauves was a little bit more subdued, while there's a couple of brighter pops of color in all things Equinox, especially with those purples. And when you swatch them out, I didn't really see any shades that lined up exactly between them. They're similar vibe again, but you do get those brighter purples in the Equinox and not quite as like muted and dusty looking as the Making Mauves palette. Next, I also wanted to swatch it next to the You Are a Cutie palette that came out around Valentine's Day. When I looked at these side by side in the pan, I felt like they looked really close because the You Are a Cutie has a little bit of those brighter purple shades in it, similar to the Equinox palette. And once I swatched them side by side, I could definitely see so many similarities between these two palettes. Again, the You Are a Cutie is no longer available, so if you missed out on that one, the All Things Equinox could be a good alternative. Next, I also wanted to compare it to another limited edition palette, the Sweet Nothings palette. This one has, again, that very similar vibe going on with the purples, so I definitely thought we would get some shade matches between these two, and I actually think there's a few shades that line up almost perfectly, especially that beautiful purple shimmer that's right in the middle of the palette. It's almost spot on, exact, and also the two towards the left-hand side of the screen I feel like line up pretty well. But again, this is one that's not an exact dupe, but a very similar vibe. And then the last comparison I have is the Flutterby palette. So this one is also a fairly new release and has that same kind of color story again, but this one, similar to the Making Mauves palette, I feel like is a little bit more of a muted color story, a little bit of those dusty pinks and purples. So when I swatched these two out, I think the two shades on the right-hand side of your screen are almost spot-on matches for each other, but that's basically where the similarities ended. I think the rest of the palettes are pretty different from each other. The only thing they have in common really is that they have cool tones. Alright guys, so final thoughts on this collection is I love absolutely everything. I can see myself using all of it. The palettes, the lip glosses, the blushes, it's all beautiful and all very wearable, at least for me. So I definitely recommend picking these up if you don't have something that is similar in your collection already and you had your eye on these. I honestly think you can't go wrong both with the formulas and the color selection. So anyway guys, I'd love to hear what you think down in the comments below. Did you get this collection? Have you been sort of iffy on it, or are you planning on skipping it? I always love chatting with you guys. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and also please don't forget to hit that subscribe button in the corner of your screen before you go. Thanks guys, and I will see you next time. Take care. Bye.